Welcome to the Exhaust Notes Podcast.
What is good, everyone? Welcome back to the Exhaust Notes Formula One Podcast. You might have missed us for a few weeks, but hey, you know, we have our own summer/winter/ the world is coming to an end in America break. So we're back from that to try to distract ourselves from what's going on in our country. But I don't want to get too political. I'm just here to talk to my guys, Rohit and Todd, about some Formula One and have a little fun, and hopefully you all can enjoy this show. So what's good, fellas? How you guys been?
I think just
go ahead, Russ.
See, we don't know what to do with ourselves to our global audience. It's just like, is it a safe space? Is it not? I mean, I'm triggered by Helmut's lazy eye and his casual racism. So like, I can't do anything with that man as far as I'm concerned. But I will say this, shout out to everybody that reached out to us individually, collectively saying, BTF, not the other car podcast, but where's the podcast? And so we decided we're not going to have an episode until Max won, and then lo and behold, Max called our bluff and won in a, dare I say, old-school Max Verstappen performance. But before we can get further down that path, I will go to the aforementioned lazy eye. Todsworth, how are you?
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm good. I was going to say that America decided to embrace one villain, so I decided to embrace another villain and be Darth Marco for this podcast. So
he's not Emperor Marco, because I always figured Horner was the Darth.
He could be.
You might have a point there. Yeah, in the hierarchy of things, I would agree with that.
Well, even the Emperor was a Darth. Like he goes by something else now, right? He was like Darth Sidious, I guess. So,
but I feel like Horner is far more charismatic. He's far more powerful than this decrepit old man that, once again, his casual racism drives him forward and only forward. So who's to say? And in that case, does that make Yuki Jar Jar?
Oh my God, that's a hilarious comparison. I don't want it to be true, but that works really well.
We should do a whole episode of Formula One drivers and team members as Star Wars characters.
Yeah,
I mean, give them all.
It's basically, listener, you have a rich off season ahead of you whenever we get there, because I think we're going to overcompensate for all the episodes we missed during the season.
Yeah.
So every convoluted pop culture crossover that you have experienced in the last 6 months, best believe we are going to milk that cow during the off season. And my other comparison to Yuki is probably going to be Mudeng, so watch out for that.
Speaking of Mudeng, I saw some political, you know, I don't know if I'm in the mood for political jokes yet, but I saw some meme that was basically like, well, if she would have chosen Mudeng as a running partner, she would have won.
Fuck. That would have been a lot more support.
Man.
Results.
Speaking
of
results,
what are we doing?
What we are doing is going to recap what was, dare I say, can a race be both interesting and season-ending in a sense? Because whatever thoughts we had around a driver title race just came to a grinding halt. As soon as that penultimate restart happened and Max Verstappen said, wait a minute, I've only got Ocon ahead of me? I'll see you bitches later.
Also sprinkle in a little just terrifyingness on that too, because some of those camera shots of like Lewis, like just going full speed into, you know, cars in front of them and like not seeing the lights until the very last second. I in that moment was like, thank God I'm not a Formula One driver.
It was quite the spectacle. Like it's weird how some countries that they go to race in, the spray doesn't seem to be as bad. Like I know like different levels of rain will affect the spray, but like in some countries it feels like it just hangs in the air more.
Yeah.
Right. And then Brazil is definitely one of those countries where it's like there's like zero visibility, to your point, Nick. Like, and it doesn't matter if there's like hasn't been another car through in the last like 5 seconds. It's still just like a wall of fog that they're driving into.
It is almost, it's like the rain and the upspray turns into fog. It reminds me of like San Francisco, you know, it's like just insane.
Mm-hmm.
I realized as I was saying that maybe I obviously have trust issues. I would not trust anyone in a car in front of me with you know, that much car underneath me to do the right thing and not put me in harm's way. But maybe that's why American drivers we're so, sussed out by the. Never mind. I don't want to talk about politics, but anyway, we don't have any American drivers in Formula One for a reason, and I'll just leave it at that.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
Is that how you pronounce that? I've been saying
it was just
kilometer the whole time.
Logan Sargent meme ever was just him screaming, "What the fuck is a kilometer?"
Can we name that the episode of this title?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or the title of this episode? My dyslexia strike.
Oh. Whoa, yeah, there it is. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to what you were talking about, Ro. Like, if Lando is like the plucky British upstart, Max Verstappen took him out behind the shed and shot him in this race because holy hell, we've talked about this a bunch of times already, and McLaren is still new to fighting up front, or not new, but like they haven't done it in so long that their current team members aren't used to fighting there, and they just can't do strategy to save their lives. And then they just, whenever they have to like make tough decisions, they wait until the last second. Even in the sprint, think about back to the sprint, they basically got saved barely by that what was it, the virtual safety car in the sprint.
Yeah.
They swapped one lap before that happened. It's just they can't help themselves, and then you get Max just doing Max in the race. Like there's nothing, no stopping him. So congratulations to the 4-time world champion.
You're calling it now.
Oh God, yeah.
So this is me being a revisionist. This is me being a new student to the game. This is me demanding some sort of asterisk to this. But I feel that a driver's title should not be worth as much if they can outwin the corresponding constructors. It's like,
what do you mean by that, though?
Like I said, it just came to me in the middle of this podcast. I'm just wondering, what is the percentage likelihood of a driver and his corresponding constructor winning a double every year? Like, is that a high number?
It's been pretty high for the last, 15-ish years.
Okay. Is this the first time since when that we're more than likely going to see a differing driver winning than a constructor?
I think I would say it's probably like a 15-20% chance on a regular basis. I mean, in the last 15-20 years. Beyond that, we probably saw more of it because it was more competitive. But I don't know. I didn't realize we had, he's going by Helmut's Lazy Eye, but I think he's more like what's that guy, Steve Kornacki or whatever, doing the political.
The
he's
prognostication?
Calling it. He's calling it for Max already. We still got 3 races left, man.
3 races. So I think Max would have to DNF in 2 of them, and Lando would have to win to have a
60 points, right?
So that's another thing that just boggles my mind. After the sprint race, it was a 44-point lead that Max had over Lando, and after the race, Max is back up to 62, 66, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to agree with Nate's Silver Arrow over there. That's the best Formula One prognostication pun I could come up with.
Man. Well, so look, there's 3 races and there's a sprint, right? So let's just say Lando wins 2 races and does halfway decent in either the sprint or the third race, right? That puts him equal with Max points wise, roughly, by barely getting through the half of those points opportunities.
If Max DNFs twice, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying without thinking about Max's points. So if Max has any a single DNF, or even just a situation where he ends up near the bottom where he's only getting a point or 2, I think there's still plenty of hope there for McLaren, because they haven't done this well, to your point, Todd, but they also have the advantage in that they have better cars right now, and they have 2 better cars. Checo's not going to be near the front of any of this stuff for the rest of the season. I don't think. Oscar Piastri could definitely play devil's advocate, keeping Max at bay. There's plenty of people down the grid, I think, that could also have some elbows out mentality for Max if he ends up in that situation again. I think this race would have been much different if we didn't have all the craziness and the chaos. And I don't think Max ends up winning that race if you don't have the safety cars, the shit luck on the pit stops, under yellow, that kind of stuff. I mean, I know that stuff, you can debate on whether that's luck or just poor strategy, but man, it was like those kind of things you have to feel like the world is kind of conspiring against you. And I also don't think we've seen Max at this level, to Rohit's point. Like, this is like Max that we used to see
1 year ago.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't seen this Max this season, really. He's been dominant in the early races of the season, but this was like dominant and coming from the back of the field in like the most chaotic, rainy, race of the year so far.
Mean, not only that, as you guys are talking about this, I'm still trying to get my sea legs underneath me because it's been a minute from this podcast. All I can think of is if I was either a professional wrestling booker or if I was a producer of Drive to Survive, I would give Red Bull the blank check to do the following, where it's basically you have to, how would I explain this? I would somehow let Oscar mess up Max's next race, so it comes down to like the last race or whatever, and then the ultimate double turn where Checo crashes into Lando or something happens, and long story short, Oscar Piastri is the second Red Bull driver because of the Mark Webber connection, and there we go. Because to your point, can we call it the marginalization of Oscar Piastri, especially during the sprint race?
Yeah, that's like...
I mean, I feel like I'm single-handedly spoken this into existence, but why does he want to stay at McLaren? What have they shown him in the last couple of races that say, you know what, you're our second guy? Because they're almost treating him like late-era Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes, where you're like, hey, can you just get out of the way and let Lewis/Lando do their thing?
I mean, I think at this stage in the season, like, you have to go after, like, you're going to win the constructors. You have to let Lando do all he can
Fair
to get that victory. And in theory, that comes back around for Oscar in the form of a good contract, or him being in front next year, which is I think most of us would probably think that he will be in front of Lando sooner rather than later.
But to your point as well, Nick, like I'm okay with Lando pushing hard because up until this last race, we were still under the impression that he's going to give Max everything that Max can gut in terms of a driver's race. But obviously the results of Brazil have kind of told us it's back to Max's title to lose. We'll just leave it at that. But I agree with your point around they still have to go after the constructors because I don't think that's a formality. Now, that being said, if Ferrari loses one of their drivers for every single race going forward, then maybe it is a cakewalk for McLaren as well as it was for Max in the driver's title.
What do you think, Todd?
Sorry, you guys are kind of freezing on me. I just don't see how you guys are giving this any like hope above hope sort of chance here. Like, this was the perfect weekend. Max had a 5-pace grid penalty. He had the whole red flag situation with Lance's crash or whatever in the sprint qualifying or in qualifying that knocked him out. He was starting 16th because of his penalty. If there was ever a weekend to capitalize, it's this weekend. It could have been literally I know that like it was bad strategy and luck and it was everything went Red Bull's way. But if there was ever a weekend to do it, all of the things lined up for this weekend.
100%
still
agree.
Won the race.
Yeah.
It's over. It's over.
I think they look back at this past weekend as, the nail in the coffin. Definitely. I do think that there's that slim bit of hope. But then now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's just that, I don't know, maybe Red Bull's controlling the weather, like. That's what they say is happening with the weather
Don't
in
bring
the
this.
US,
Don't bring
right?
the space lasers into this.
Oh yeah. Okay. Never mind.
It's actually Mercedes controlling the weather.
Yeah.
Nah.
So, fun fact, this is a tangent. Mercedes actually does this in Germany. Where their factory is located in Germany is right next to some mountains that has, because of where the weather comes in and it butts up against this mountain range, causes a lot of hail and it damages their cars where they store them. So they actually seed the clouds there to make it not hail. That's 100% true thing.
Interesting.
Man.
Because it was costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars in paint and dents and stuff. So,
I know people do that around the world for various reasons, but I thought it was only controlled by one political party, so I didn't realize that Mercedes aligns with that political party.
yes. Yep.
Do you want me to make the Nazi joke? I'm not going to, but I will say this. That meteorology report was brought to you by Danica Patrick and the Lizard People Alliance.
Yeah.
Oh,
Also, I just love
Jesus
that that's
Christ.
one of our most popular episodes. So if you haven't listened to the Danica Patrick episode, it's worth a laugh. It's worth the many laughs of that episode.
I saw Lizard Lady on Orange Man's plane the night before. God, whatever. Jesus Christ. Anyway.
I don't know if you're talking about a porn. I don't know if you're talking about a children's book. I don't know what you're talking about. But...
Yep.
All right. So what else do we got to talk about this?
Can we talk about Lance Stroll?
It's not an episode with you. If it's not, yes.
Hey, come on, give me a break. I haven't brought up Lance Stroll in a while.
That's because we haven't recorded in a while.
Well, but it feels like a while. We already got rid of Sargent. We got rid of Latifi. What the fuck? Let's review his weekend. Crashes in free practice 1. Crashes in sprint qualifying. Crashes in regular qualifying.
I believe the Canadians call that a hat trick.
I believe. Oh, he's going for the Gordie Howe hat trick. He also crashes on the way to the grid, or spins out, not crashes, and then recovers, and then immediately drives himself into the gravel and gets beached. Holy shit, Lance!
So,
just go
Just having
be a billionaire and dip your balls on the sand on a beach somewhere. Just. You don't need to do this, man.
Here's my thought. The last time we had a Trump presidency, it resulted in the Chicago Cubs winning a World Series, right? They were fairly closely related. At this point, Lance Stroll leaving Formula One is at that Chicago Cubs level of winning a World Series, and the fact that I don't think it's ever going to happen in my lifetime, but if it does, I'll cry tears of joy, and I have no affiliation to Lance Stroll, A Great Nation of Canada, Maple Syrup, Iron Trev, the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
Wait, did you just say Lance Stroll is going to win the World Drivers' Championship, or just leave?
I said he's never going to leave Formula One. He's going to be a ghost. There will always be 21 cars on the grid because nobody will be able to remove Lance Stroll's specter from the grid.
It's almost like, when you're playing video games and you're so I was with my brother and my nephews over the last couple of weeks and playing, whatever, the MLB The Show, doing home run derby with the boys. And, they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to pick, whoever has 99 because that's obviously the highest you can get every time. And I'm like, well, I just want to play with different guys to see what they do, Because I'm thinking more this is fun to see the difference in all the players. I feel like Lance Stroll is he's like a 52 out of the 100. Papa Stroll is just dumping so much money into the program trying to get him to the 99 level.
He really is in the 2K sense a creative player, right? Because they start off at 50, and then you can either earn it the hard way, which is grinding and playing nonstop 24/7, or you can donate, I would say, a freshman level worth of semester credits, virtually and dollar wise, and then you can be an automatic 97. And the thing is, I feel only I'd say 33% of Papa Stroll's credits actually are able to go through to Lance's development. So he's still probably only at a third of what he needs to be because of all the investment that Papa Stroll has made. But I think that's proof that there is a God and he's laughing at all of us.
Papa Stroll needs to give him the juice. If there is any sort of
what
steroids
is the juice
that you can
in
give
Formula One? Like Nos in the Fast and the Furious sense? Like
Maybe.
Dom Toretto as his
Hey, Harry,
team principal?
I'm going to need 2 of these. So my Eclipse topped out at 140.
And I was going to say, do you think
I'm going to need 2 of these.
there's enough DVD players in the world to get him that fast? Because that was the thing, that not a car guy, never understood the connection between DVD players and making a car go fast.
Hey, money is money. Actually, time out. I got a shameless plug here because Todd can recognize the bucket list here for me. The other podcast, one of the other podcasts that I have with Eric and Jacques, we do the Cars and Kicks podcast, and we just put up an episode this week with RJ De Vera, who was one of 2 consultants on the original Fast and Furious movie. It was a really cool episode, and Todd knows how impactful this man was on the industry of car culture as a whole, and still is to this day. He's like VP of marketing for SEMA now, so he's basically just continuing to push that industry forward. It was really cool to like have that conversation with him, and definitely talked about some of the fun facts of Fast and Furious on that episode, because they did so many things that like were just straight out wrong and didn't make sense, and thankfully him and the other guy that was the consultant on the film like kind of caught some of it, but like so much of it he was just like, yeah, we just couldn't, they wouldn't change some things because they had already shot it. It was like, oh, it's already done. So cool conversation though.
What were there more gallons of that were being used during that production? Like gallons of oil for the cars or gallons of baby oil for Vin Diesel's arms?
It's probably a lot of both. It's probably pretty equal.
No, that's a tired old Adam Carolla, Bill Simmons joke, but I had to use it.
Yeah. Also, I think about that because that movie, obviously I love it. It's like so corny and over the top, but like it was a moment, right? And then it's turned into like however many different movies that are like so far beyond anything. It's like Marvel Cinematic Universe with like, you know,
Ocean's 11 and Italian.
Like
but the thing is, the first one, we have the hindsight now to say how goofy it was, but it felt very real in 2001 when it came out.
Oh yeah,
and,
definitely.
I mean, that's
a rabbit hole, but like, there were some things in it that he talks about on the show. Like it's definitely worth a listen for anybody that remembers that era and has any fondness, appreciation for it. You know, it was really cool, kind of nostalgia trip for me. But
Nick, can you do a one-man podcast episode where you compare the various cast members of your cinematic podcasting universe to our Fast and Furious doppelgangers?
I mean, this is like, I don't have kids, but I feel like this is the, how do you choose your favorite child
I'm not asking you to choose,
right?
because listen, I've padded my stats as better than anybody because I'm on 2 of your podcasts, but I would just say this, like, who's the Dom Toretto? Well, you're Dom Toretto, but who's your Brian? Who's your Tyrese? Who's your Luda? I
should do an episode breaking that all down. You know what's funny is like, it's so different. Like, you know, doing this in sneaker history, right? We laugh so much and just are just so ridiculous on this show. Sneaker history is like halfway professional with a few laughs here and there. And I feel like with the Cars and Kick stuff, it's like
that's
more on the professional
NPR.
Side. Yeah,
that's downright
it's definitely
NPR.
Like NPR. Oh man. Anyway, let's get back to some racing. My favorite part of the weekend, Lewis Hamilton and Ayrton Senna's McLaren.
Oh, that was
awesome. MP4 5B. I watched that probably 15 times after, you know, once it was put up on YouTube, because it was just so cool to see, like, that car, the V10 from that car is like I could point to that car and be like, this is what made me want to pay attention to racing. Yes. So to see that car back out there and to see Lewis, who has, you know, like, hit the fan base in Brazil for Lewis is wild. Like, I don't think outside of like maybe maybe Kobe in the Philippines level of like fandom. I don't think there is a fan base outside of someone's home city or country that is as passionate as Brazil is for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I think it's an adopted superstar thing. Like, he practically is Brazilian. Doesn't he have Brazilian citizenship, or is he an honorary Brazilian citizen? I mean, and to your point, Nick, like, same thing. Not a car guy to the level that you two are, but my natural inclination was going straight to my local store and be like, do I buy the Ayrton Senna Lego set now? Like, what else do I need in terms of a sign from up above? That maybe the Senna Netflix TV show will be really good too, and then that'll force my hand. But no, it looked awesome. It was eerily reminiscent to, and Nick, you can probably tell me what pair of sneakers, when Jordan in his last season played at the Garden, didn't he wear Jordan 1s?
Yep, Jordan 1s.
That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, totally. That's a great analogy.
Thanks, Brian.
Wait, no, I thought you said he was Dom.
No, I'm dumb.
Yep. Yeah. Yes.
See, back to being professional.
Brian Earl Spillner. Sounds like a serial killer name.
Buster.
Serial killer? Is that what you are? Throws this wallet at him. I could recite the whole fucking movie, Jesus Christ.
Can we do that as a one-man podcast?
Party, yeah.
Just read lines.
Todd Yates presents Fast and the Furious.
Oh, God. It is one of the most quotable movies ever.
It is.
Going back to Lewis thing, it feels like the adoption kind of happened rather quickly by the Brazilians of Lewis Hamilton, because he always said Senna was his favorite or whatever, but it didn't really seem like Brazil adopted him until maybe his 6th or 7th world championship, and then when he reached that level of peak fame and he had all those great races in Brazil, they were finally like, all right, well, he's our guy now. And he kept going back every year and saying this is my home, kind of jokingly saying it's my home race. But man,
it's exactly that. I mean, he spoke the secret into existence, because I'm a big proponent of, if you say something long enough and enough times, eventually some aspect of it is going to work itself out to whatever you want. So to your point, he's been chasing Brazil for a while, and Brazil, I think, with a number of different things, maybe the capitulation of their soccer team was like, man, we really need some sort of sporting icon because the soccer team's not doing it for us. Go ahead and let's bat these eyelids back at Lewis. And yeah, lo and behold, it's a match made in heaven. I mean, he does not look out of place muralistically, stylistically. He is the embodiment of everything we've always expected from our Brazilian athletes, which is a level of dominance that is also paralleled by an unrivaled style and substance that is often attempted to be duplicated but never replicated.
I think too on the Brazilian side of it, I mean, is there a driver that hasn't said that Senna is his favorite since Senna?
Prost.
It's funny that you say that, but because a lot of the young guns that are on the grid now have referenced Alonso as their favorite.
Oh, interesting.
A bunch.
Okay.
And because if you think about it, Alonso came on the grid before several of the rookie drivers or soon-to-be rookie drivers were born.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah, that's nuts.
But, Senna is, the de facto number one, right? Everybody, because of his legend, because of what happened, everything, everybody says Senna. But it feels like the one thing I wanted to say is over the course of the weekend, they kept talking about the new resurfacing and how bumpy it was and everything. And Lewis especially was just oh, my back's so bad. The bumps. Was it maybe because you drove a 25-year-old car around Brazil?
But I mean, to come to Lewis's defense, I think we also saw Fernando Alonso complain about that at the tail end of the race as well. When he was talking about, he goes, "Guys, I could have quit, but Fernando, he's never going to turn down the possibility of points." Yeah. So that's why. Yeah, go ahead.
Wasn't he in 12th though when he said that? I'm going to finish the race for the mechanics.
Using the Fernando Alonso sliding scale, that means he was actually in 3rd with chasing down first. Come on, do your math.
He was one off a podium. I forgot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alonso math.
I do. I don't know if you guys saw this. I think somebody said this in the Discord, but I saw it too, in one of the interviews with Lewis, that he originally planned to go out in the original helmet, in Senna's original helmet, and like not tell anybody and surprise the crowd. Did you see this like little interview that he did?
I didn't.
Yeah, so it didn't work out. Like he wasn't able to do that for some reason or another, and he obviously had his own helmet that was like a tribute helmet that he wore for the race and for that drive. But really, that would have been so amazing to like have that, like have the car roll out with him in Senna's, you know, like kind of
OG
iconic
helmet.
Brazilian, inspired helmet. Which
Banco
that
Nacional.
kind of thought process to me too. That kind of thought process for me, like as like a, you know, doing it for the fans type of thing. I mean, I'm obviously a Lewis fan to begin with anyway, but the fact that he thinks about those things and like consciously is trying to do those things to make the experience better for the fans, such a like admirable thing, because there's so many guys that don't give a shit about the fans, and like people spend hundreds, thousands of dollars to go to these races at this point. So that was really cool if he would have been able to pull it off.
I was going to say, this is the only pro helmet that Todd is going to have in this moment of the podcast.
Wait, what? Pearl helmet? What'd you say?
No, I said this is the only pro helmet content of the...
I have it somewhere.
No, he's still not getting it. It's a
Nope.
bad execution by your boy here.
I got it.
Pearl
I got
helmet.
it. Helmet,
Pearl helmet.
helmet.
Got
Yep.
a little slow. Sorry, we've been off a while.
Hey, we're going through our testing sessions, listeners. Figure it out. We'll be great in about 4 months.
Yes, yep. But I do have Senna's helmet around here somewhere. What was I going to say? Never mind. We'll move on.
I've got something. Speaking of cool helmets, and I'm going to use this to probably talk about the talking point that most Formula One podcasts are going to be sharing in their episode about Brazil. I really liked Esteban Ocon's helmet, and that's not just because I'm an Estebandit, so to speak, but I just thought that it was indicative of the race that they had where, wow, Alpine, where is this? Like, you are truly going to have a one-race season where that's going to win you apparently $50 million more than anticipated, because that was the other thing I kept hearing during this entire broadcast of the races, how they've, frankly, assuming they don't collapse like they have at the better part of the season when they were, I think, 19th and 20th at whatever race that I can't remember off the top of my head, they are now 6th after, I think, leapfrogging from 10th. And can we say that was a season-defining and season-refining win for the French team? Or, like, what are you guys thinking about that? Because I don't think any of us would have predicted a non-top 3 podium finish for that team out of all the middle-class and lower-class racers and teams of this grid this year.
It just shows that the
for it.
rain is the great equalizer, right? Like, they got super lucky, obviously, with the red flag after Lando and George had pitted.
Yep.
And that put them into, I think it was second and third, or no, first and second, respectively, because of the other pitting.
Ocon also did well in the sprint, no? Wasn't he P4 in the sprint race as well?
Was he P4 in the sprint?
I thought he was. Anyway.
I think you're lying.
I have a habit. I have a habit.
I don't know. I actually don't remember that. It just shows you that rain is the great equalizer. If you take away a ton of grip from, downforce and mechanical grip, it really comes down to just like drivers keeping it on track. The biggest thing to me is that once the rain, so they ended up, first and second. I think first and third. Max took the
rolling start
lead pretty quickly after the restart, but then nobody caught him.
That's the most important thing to me. I just kept
even
thinking,
as it dried out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's nothing about that team, nothing about those drivers, nothing about that car that inspired any bit of confidence. And I tend to be the Alpine fanboy of the group, but this was just, dare I say, I didn't realize we were going to get vintage Ferrari dressed as Alpine in a body switch movie. It was truly a Freaky Friday situation.
Which one's Lindsay Lohan?
I'm going to go with Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, he's prettier.
Yeah.
I mean, they were also hugging
but
it
Ocon's
out
a better
after the
driver
race.
/ Curtis was a better actress. I'm sorry, Nick. You're still trying to be professional.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean,
Please.
they were hugging it out after the race. Like it felt like a completely different team. Like it's amazing what winning.
I mean,
what is it? 4 times or 3 or 4 times your entire season point total in one weekend will do for morale.
Like Rose said, they went literally from 9th to 6th.
Yeah.
In one race.
Yes, 33 points on the weekend, 6 from 16 before, right? So
if I can ask you guys a rookie question, there was a rolling start that, to me, was one of the many reasons why Max eventually won that race. If that wasn't a rolling start, do you think Alpine could have held him at bay a little bit longer, or would it have just been an inevitability given how Max was driving?
I mean, I think that yes, to some extent there would have been a possibility of it, a better possibility of it, but like, man, I think Max was just
a man on a mission.
Top-notch Max. Yeah, like I think it's why he's
one
of the best.
Really good wet starts anyway. Like even if it was a standing start, which they don't really do in wet races for safety reasons, he probably would have gotten Ocon pretty quick anyway.
Yeah,
he's really good at wet starts. I don't know. The funny, Ro, you mentioned it, how they were like hugging and best buds after the race, and it felt a little bit awkward because they're still frenemies, like pretty through and through.
The only way that could have been better was if they had figured out who the girl was that tore those two apart when they were like middle schoolers, and have her give each of them their respective trophies. Which, by the way, tangent, I guess in a professional sense. Is there a cooler trophy for a race than the Brazilian circle? What are we calling that? Like that, I'd like that trophy.
Pierre tried to hula hoop it, which just shows how slender he is. But he was able to get it over his shoulders and around his stomach.
I would like to think that if Yuki had won on a podium, he could have used that as like the headdress of a toga party he could have gone to, because that's how big his head is.
He does have a big brick of a head.
Yeah.
Going back to your question, yeah, there's some cool Suzuka last year when you kiss it and lights up with your country's flag.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. Sweet. America this year, even though they aborted it, the bear bricks
maybe that's a fitting tribute to our once.
Yeah,
that's my one political comment of the day.
Wait, what'd you say?
Because Todd said something. Todd said something about aborting it, and I was like, maybe that might have been a fitting tribute given our political stance now as a country.
Yeah.
Nope.
Cut that.
Leaving that one alone.
Place. Yeah. Those trophies, I appreciate that about Formula One trophies, getting a little bit more creative with it, because how much of the same hardware over and over do you need if you're a Formula One racer? It just like racing in general has been very boring in that regard for the past however many years. So like the last 5+ years, it's been like cool to see some creativity.
No, it goes back to Brazil. Like they've always been at the epicenter and the epitome of cool, and I'm glad they could translate that to their trophies as well. And like I said, maybe Lewis should have got one on spirit and essence alone, but he's had a couple of his fair share of Brazilian ones. I don't think he's going to be too upset. But I look at it from the perspective of if I'm a Max and I've got so many trophies that I probably don't know what to do with them, I think one of the things that's always going to help me remember a race fondly is its structure or its design, and Brazil's knocked it out of the park, so kudos again.
I like how they're changing them a lot now, too.
It should be a representation of the culture that you just raced in. I think that's a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I meant like each racetrack, they're updating them like year to year. They're not like Brazil's last year was not the same as we saw Brazil this year.
Perfect.
Like I think that's really cool. And if you're winning 10 trophies a year or something like Max, then you don't want them to be the same. Like as cool as it is to like have the Lombardi Trophy, you wouldn't want. It'd be cooler if like the Lombardi Trophy was different every year, right?
Although now I really want the next time the Chiefs or your favorite football team listener win the Lombardi Trophy and somebody kisses it, it should light up with their team colors, because if they can do that in Formula One, they can do it in America.
It's too newfangled.
USA. No, it's not.
Can't do that. I really hope it's not the Chiefs. Like,
I
1,000%.
Hope you're wrong.
Well, it's not going to be the Raiders, so. Should we talk rookies?
Let's talk some rookies.
Let's do it.
There's, I think Trev is in the Discord called this out. Like next year is going to be really, really exciting. Probably more rookies or sophomore year drivers than we've had in, I want to say, God, I can't remember the last time, honestly, we've had this.
So for those of us
rookies
not paying attention, how many are we going to get next year?
So we have Behrman coming on.
The
Ollie
beer man.
Behrman.
Yep.
We'll have Colapinto most likely. We have, who else?
And include sophomores, because I think I could only think of the new stake driver.
Bortoletto.
So we didn't even talk about that yet. Bortoletto got announced by Steak Kick, Cactus Jack, Visa,
StockX.
Whatever the hell they are.
Yep.
Soon to be Sauber.
So that means Bortoletto and Hulkenberg
Yes.
will be at Audi or Sauber, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
I still don't know if they're going to be Audi next year or the following year.
I think they're going to be Kick Sauber next year, and that was part of the announcement that they made introducing Mr. Bortoletto.
And then Audi the following year, 2026.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Which they must have dropped the bag because he was signed to McLaren. For those that don't know, he was driving under McLaren's Driver Academy in F2 this year, and they must have just dropped the bag on him. So yeah, we have Behrman, Colapinto, Liam Lawson, which I know he's in now, but he'll have his first full season. Bortoletto. I think that's it. Well, 4 rookies is a lot.
I think there's a 5th one, isn't there?
I was trying to go through it, Nick. Jack Doohan from Alpine.
Jack Doohan will be driving an Alpine. That's right.
But I feel like, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, as long as I've been watching, which we'll call that the Drive to Survive era, it almost felt like we always got 2 to 3 new drivers or rookie drivers. Even this feels like a significant uptake in that sense, because this generation of fan has been brought up with the likes of Lando and George and Albon. And I mean, it wasn't even Charles Leclerc in his first or second year in 2017 when the show first started. So, like, we're now, I guess, entering in the quote-unquote Saved by the Bell new class era of the Formula One drivers.
That's a deep cut. Yeah, it's weird to think that the old guard is now like George and Lando and Albon and Max and Leclerc. They're like kind of the old guard now. They've been around long enough to where they're not the newbies anymore, but they're all still, 26 and under, something like that. 27 maybe.
And Kimi Antonelli's in with Russell,
Antonelli,
right?
how could we? He might be the most high-profile rookie, and we completely forgot about him.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
It's not like we have a Formula One podcast, guys.
I know. It's like
things have been a little chaotic with all these rookies. I think that's what makes it a little bit...
They're all blending into one fresh-faced assassin who's going to win a race and then crash it right after.
Oh, that's a good bet. Which is the first rookie to crash in a race?
Let's save that for a future episode, because this reminds me of the old Slam basketball feature. Anytime they had a new rookie class where they had to give rookie superlatives, where it was like rookie most likely to average 20 points, rookie most likely to get 10 assists, rookie most likely to lead the league in turnovers and all sorts of stuff. And I think that would be a good episode.
That would be a great episode.
That's
we can include a rookie that will outperform Lance Stroll just for Todd.
I think at this point it might be rookie that underperforms Lance Stroll, because based on how Todd loves him some Lance Stroll.
Is he now the worst driver on the grid? Checo will be gone.
You think so?
So there's a strong rumor. Again, the reason I was including Colapinto in that whole 6 that we just named is that there's a strong rumor that was put out there by the same guy that called that when Logan Sargent was getting the boot. He put it out there first, and was correct about that. There's a strong rumor that Colapinto over the weekend signed a deal with Red Bull.
I will say this, outside of Lewis, he was probably the second most celebrated driver in that race. Like, there were so many Colapinto signs, and I get that there's a close proximity from Argentina to Brazil, but I think that might be as big of a gamble, if not bigger, than Antonelli going to Mercedes, because Mercedes has kind of gone through a lull, so it doesn't strike me as a surprise that they're going for a fresh injection of blood, so to speak, with Antonelli. But this is completely out of left field for me, because I think Colapinto's done fine, but do you guys think he's done something as great as warrant a Red Bull contract off the basis of 2 races, 3 races?
I think it's 5 now.
Okay, 5 races.
Yeah. He has really impressed, I will say that. He's pretty much immediate, he hit the ground running, was only a 10th or so off Albon in his very first race. Even beat, I think, Albon in his second race.
So basically,
he had that big crash in Brazil this weekend, but the conditions were kind of crazy, so can't totally fault him for that.
No, I was going to say he's put Helmut's lazy eye to work, so to speak, if that's the type of attention to detail that Red Bull's looking at.
Yes, we know that Helmut likes his eye on things.
Colapinto came. You said Colapinto came up through McLaren.
No,
that was with McLaren. Bortoleto. Well, yeah. Bortoleto's also under Fernando Alonso's management.
Is he?
A14 management is what it's called.
Oh, interesting.
Is that a subsidy of kimono hats?
It says Bortoleto. This is from Auto Week. It says Bortoleto won 2 races early in the season, managed a points lead with a series consistently mature drives to win that year's title. That came in his first full year under the tutelage of Fernando Alonso's A14 management scheme, with the Aston Martin veteran offering advice and guidance to the youngster. And after winning the Formula 3 crown, Bortoleto joined McLaren's young driver program.
Never heard a management structure described as a scheme, but kudos to you, Fernando.
That. Yeah, I feel like that is Formula One in a nutshell.
If there's any sport to have a management scheme, then it's definitely Formula One.
It's also incredibly on brand for Fernando Alonso.
Well, and that's just something to think about. Like when you actually get into those into the weeds with some of these drivers, if he has that close a relationship with Fernando, not that Fernando will ever retire, but if he were to retire, or if Lance were to somehow not be on the grid, there's a connection there that you could see a direct, okay, maybe they buy him out and bring him over to Aston Martin.
And you're talking about Bortoleto?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, again, we're talking about these connections things with Colapinto. He has ties to Carlos Slim, who is basically Checo's backer. And Carlos Slim is, I think, the richest guy in Mexico. He owns Telmex and Telcel and Claro, big cellular companies.
I believe he's also a soft drink magnate, no?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Yep. I know that Telcel and Telmex were on his list. But Colapinto also has ties to Carlos Slim. Not financial backing for racing, but he's got ties to him. So it would make sense to me that they're going to lose Checo, but they keep the South America and Middle American
connection
support there.
But then
they put him in a car.
So let me ask you this. Wouldn't it make more sense then just to kind of see what they have? Give him the second seat at the RB Red Bull Academy next to Yuki and then go after whatever driver you want on the grid. But then again, when am I successfully going to psychoanalyze Red Bull and their machinations in terms of how they do things?
Yeah, well, they're not giving Yuki the seat, out of which I think he deserves it the most.
I mean, honestly, we should actually give Yuki a little credit because he had a hell of a run.
He did. That's why I'm saying,
I think he finished 6th or 7th at the end of the race, but he was up at the front for a significant portion of the race.
Yeah,
and I don't know if we're just Yuki fans, but I feel if he had the chance to drive the real Red Bull car, he would give most of the grid a run for their money.
I agree. And I think the thing that sometimes holds him back is how much adoration he has of everybody. I feel like he's everybody's third or fourth favorite driver on the grid. And sometimes there's a blessing and a curse that comes with it because you kind of get relegated to this plucky Jar Jar Binks type mascot where you're just like, oh, Yuki's going to Yuki, lols. And that's not fair to him as a driver because, to your point, Nick, he is very effective. He has his blow-ups like most of us do in reality, but then at the same time, he's still showing you why, consistently, he's a top 20 driver in the world.
Top 19.
That's
Lance
true.
is still on the grid. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Max.
But I think we're all in agreement there that Yuki should get the first shot at the Red Bull seat. And then if they have to pull a Pierre or Daniel Kvyat and they swap in Liam or Pinto mid-season, they do it. But, like, give him a shot. I think the one thing that he has shown time and again, and I think is one of the weaknesses of Yuki, is, like, he's very emotional. And that gets the better of him quite a bit. So,
but the same thing is being celebrated with the likes of Fernando and Max, and I get that's what you get when you win a world championship, but I don't know. I think it's grossly unfair to our guy, and I know I'm probably his biggest fan in terms of making comparisons to how goofy he is, how he's Cartman, how he's Jar Jar Binks, how he's your favorite person in every other aspect of pop culture, but he does let Yuki race, let Yuki cook. It's only fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the emotional thing is definitely counter to what, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner want. I think that's the biggest issue. It's just a personality difference between the way they approach things. Even though, like, we've obviously seen them all emotional and stuff too, and, like, it's just racing, you got to be passionate to be that successful at it to begin with, but, like, both those guys seem to have a very, I don't know, they just look down on anybody that actually shows any kind of emotion, in my opinion. But
or has pure blood, or lack thereof.
Yeah,
he's a muggle.
Yeah.
Did you just call Yuki a muggle?
No, but I think you're trying to call him a mudblood, and I'm not going to stand for it.
Mudblood, there it is. Sorry.
Yeah, get your magical racial slurs correct, sir.
Can't even do fake racism, right?
That's okay. There's enough of the real stuff.
Colapinto. Another thing about Colapinto, I'll say. Have you looked at this dude? He is Senna reincarnate. So,
yes.
They should have cast him in that Senna docudrama thing coming out on Netflix because he looks exactly like him. It's insane.
And I thought Antonelli was a bit of a Senna ringer. This dude is copy-paste. I'm not going to make the Timo joke because there's going to be implications that Timo's no longer the cost-prohibitive favorite as it once was. But yeah, that dude is definitely looking like Spirit Senna costume.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's fascinating, too, because being from Argentina, right? Like, it's been, I don't even know how long since we had, like, an actual
South American driver?
Well, just Argentinian drivers, right? There was, like I think in the 80s, there was, like, a guy, Jose Rodriguez, was a driver from Argentina that did, like, okay. But, like, like Juan Manuel Fangio is, like, basically, like, regarded as one of the greatest drivers in the history of all of motorsports. Somebody who I used to have a poster in the old place had his poster on the wall, photo on the wall. But, like, I think it's cool to have that, like, re-energized, country that has, it's different than, like, where I want to see all countries have representation in the sport. Yep. But when you have, Senna, a Fangio, a Schumacher, when you have these dominant, drivers throughout the years where you've already built, like, this massive following for the sport of Formula One, and then when they're gone, then you don't have the fan base is just thirsty for that, like, competitive driver. And I feel like he's stepping into that role at such an advantage compared to all the other rookies and maybe even beyond just the rookies, just because the fan base behind him is going to be so hungry for him to do well. I don't think you see that with a lot of, we haven't seen that for a while, I should say. Like Oscar Piastri, we've made the jokes about the Mark Webbers and all the other, all the other connections for all these other drivers to their countrymen. And I think because of that lengthy, we're talking like 40 years since they've had any representation in the sport, another 20 since they had a dominant driver in the sport. And that to me is a really exciting piece of it to like watch.
I mean, think about it in the perspective of as and when Max leaves the grid. I think the Netherlands are going to be very, I don't even know what the proper emotional terminology would be, but it's like once you're at the pinnacle of having your guy be the pinnacle of the sport, like it sucks when he's no longer there. Like I'm going to make this selfish. It's like when Patrick Mahomes leaves the Chiefs to solve world peace, I'm going to be heartbroken because I don't know if I'm ever going to win another Super Bowl again, and that scares me. I just don't know.
I'm going to leave that.
You should leave it, because Patrick left me in that hypothetical.
Well, yeah, because Patrick's surrounded by a bunch of people that are not interested in world peace. So,
yep.
Yeah.
A different type of world peace.
But I totally get it as a Giants fan who got to experience the team win for the first time in 50 years, win a few times, and then now have been like basically literal sleeping Giants for the last 10 years. I mean, it sucks because then you watch you watch the Dodgers win a World Series, and like I like some of the players on that team, but like that's not typical for Giants fans because Giants fans typically hate. I think that's an interesting piece to sports in general, but yeah, like especially when the teams are so dominant.
In fact,
Mahomes is a great example, like to compare to Max though, right? Because they're both like top of the game and have the rings to prove it,
The other thing though that you brought up, Nick, and kind of making it not necessarily a full circle comment, the way that the Yankees capitulated in that 5-run meltdown, like to me, this is where, going back to McLaren, like we're really going to figure out who McLaren is after this debacle of a race. Because to Todd's point, this should have been their coronation. This should have been their ascendancy. This should have been Lando's ascendancy. And usually I'm of the opinion that for you to truly unlock yourself as a winner and really achieve your potential, you have to hit rock bottom. I think this past weekend was rock bottom for McLaren. But I mean, Todd, what do you think? Because you are one of two prominent McLaren advisors in my life.
No, I mean that's not a terrible analogy. Like it's got to feel like rock bottom. They still finished like 6th and 7th or something, and they were still fighting.
And they're still ahead on the constructors
leads of things. Yeah, right. They're still, but like Ferrari had kind of an off weekend, and I still think they have a really fast car. So next race they're going to have to deal with them. I think Red Bull may have figured out things here and there on what went wrong with their car, so their pace was on. Or like not on, but like more competitive this weekend. So I think next race they're going to have both of them to contend with. So they have to be even better than they will be than they were this weekend, which was pretty much abysmal. But like they're going to have to be better than McLaren at their peak, or better than themselves at their peak, I would say, to even like have a chance of winning the constructors. Still, like they have a decently sizable lead. What is it, like 30 points over Ferrari right now?
This is my hot take of the episode. I think when it's all said and done, McLaren will win neither the drivers or the constructors title.
Wow.
I wouldn't even fault you for saying that.
And hot take is Ferrari will win a constructors title.
God, the Tifosi will explode.
I do think that McLaren has botched a little bit here and there. But also, I can't fault them for the rain.
No, you can't.
The rain
no.
is, like you said, the great equalizer, right? So, like, they should have done better this last weekend, but I don't think it's a representation of what they will do for the next 3 races. I think they end up pulling off at least the constructors.
You have to look back, right? They've had the fastest car for...
Yeah.
Probably, let's say, like, at very best, like, since Max last won a race, which was, 11 races ago, since June?
Yep, a third of the season, let's say.
Yeah.
No, not a third, because we don't have 33 races. Apologies. Go ahead.
Whatever. 3/8 or something, right?
Kilometer.
Yeah, what the fuck is a kilometer? So, like, you have to look back there, and I think that they have done really well, but they have not capitalized on where they should have been based on how the car was performing relative to where everyone else was. They had some races where they should have won by like a minute, and they didn't. They should have had a 1-2 by 30 seconds at least, and they just didn't have those kind of weekends. So I wouldn't put it. I still think it's most likely that they'll win the constructors, because out of the top three teams, the driver pairing, those two were the strongest compared to, like, let's say, well, obviously it's just Max with Red Bull, and Ferrari never really seemed to, with the exception of the race before, never really seemed to like have both drivers have a good weekend at the same time. It's always like Sainz having a good weekend or Leclerc having a good weekend. So they'll probably still win it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't.
Should we go ahead and just make our picks, right? I think we're all going for Max for the drivers, unless somebody wants to speak now or hold their peace.
I mean, I'll go with the long shot, and I'll say Lando.
Shot Lando?
Yeah.
Last lap Lando.
I'm not optimistic towards that, but
I think last leg Lando for me, but I think Max will take it.
Yeah, it's...
But I'll go Ferrari with the constructors, just to be bold.
I mean, that's probably not a bad choice. I'm still going McLaren on the constructors, but
same. I would put it there. I would put it with McLaren, but also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
Although part of
what
me
is
also
the
hopes
tiebreaker?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, a part of me wants Ferrari to win, because then I think that's going to cause even more controversy for next year, because if they don't repeat as a hypothetical back-to-back constructors, who is going to get that blame pie between Charles and Lewis, some of the most polarizing drivers on the grid?
Oh, it'll be Fred Vasseur. They'll just throw him out. Yeah.
They can't.
We have the two greatest drivers on the grid. You're out. So what is the tiebreaker for constructors, or for both? Do you know, Todd?
I think it's number of race wins, which I believe right now McLaren's leading. Because Sainz has 2, Leclerc has 2, Lando has 3, Oscar has 2. I'm pretty sure.
And Max has how many? Just for curiosity's sake.
8 now.
Okay. So he could single-handedly still win.
Wait. Hold on.
Yes. Get him, Kornacki.
What happens if the teams are level on points at the end of the season? Dead heats between teams happen reasonably often, though as yet never to decide the destination of the championship itself. Teams tied on points are separated according to race results, and the team with more wins is placed higher. Okay. If 2 or more teams have the same number of wins, then it's whichever has more second places. And if they're still tied after that, then they decide based on third place finishes.
I want to.
Can we just have like a 3-way tie and then have to figure it out? And people are just like, oh, wait, let me...
Then we might actually need Steve Kornacki. Like, yeah, exactly. I'll start a Kickstarter to get a cameo for him to watch him do that math in real time.
I'm pretty sure that's when you would see Checo get sacrificed in the paddock by Red Bull. Because he's had 2 podiums this year, maybe?
Has he had 2? I can't even think.
Oh, he's had at least 2. Right? Fuck. No,
dude,
I can guess.
I don't think he does. I think he has 1 podium this year.
He doesn't have a first place.
No, he has 0 wins.
I'm going to set the over-under at 2.5.
I would take the under on that.
We've lost Nick in the Matrix as he's looking for this.
I'm trying to find
it.
No,
we're going to keep glamping for you. So I do wonder who's got the most second places. Like, that's also a fascinating one, because I feel like McLaren would still get that, because I think, to your point, Todd, it's been all or nothing for Ferrari for most of these weekends. It's either Charles wins by himself and Carlos is in the midfield, or Carlos has crashed, or vice versa. Like, I can't remember too many double podiums for Ferrari this year.
Well, they had the one last race, but I don't think they've had any other double podiums this year.
So Checo finished second in the first 2 races, second in Japan, the 4th race, third in China. So he has 4 podiums this year.
And when was China in relationship to the...
Like, literally, the 4 of the first 5 races, he was on the podium.
So he's been a non-entity from race 6 on.
Yeah, he finished 4th in Miami, which is the 6th race, and then he's been 8th, 7th, 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 17th, 6th, 8th, DNF. Yeah.
Your
yeah,
boy's
basically, first 6 races he did well, and then disappeared.
And that still will get them at least 3rd in the Constructors, which is wild.
Unless there's a tie, in which case, to Todd's point, Checo might just be sacrificed.
Helmet will.
Well, he definitely loses his seat. If there's any possibility he doesn't lose his seat, and the rumors are not true, then that would be the end all be all. He's never coming back to Red Bull.
I was going to ask you how they would sacrifice him, but then I realized that's a morbid touch even for us, because all I can think of is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, they just hold his face to the Holy Grail and just watch it melt. But that's just, I don't want to wish that upon anyone.
I just watched Raiders of the Lost Ark about 3 months ago. I was like, I should just start watching the Indiana Jones movies again, because I hadn't seen them in 5 or 6 years.
Did they ever do like a Naked Gun spoof of the Indiana Jones movies and call it like Kentucky Smith? Because there you go,
I hope
$1 billion
so.
idea right there.
That would be amazing. All right, any parting words? Any hot takes for this next race?
Checo gets dropped before the end of the season.
Ooh, all right.
And when you say dropped, you mean like somebody's going to punch him in the paddock, or like?
I mean, maybe Horner just hauls off and hits him. No, now that Americas are done, they drop him before the end of the season. They try to give they bump Liam Lawson up to the first car, see how he does there, and if not, they have their newly signed Colapinto in the car next year.
I was going to ask you, in that hypothetical, if Lawson moves up, who's taking the second seat with Yuki for the last couple of races?
Isaac Hajir.
Okay.
Because F2 season's already over, right?
My hot take is Colapinto is going to be in points before the end of the season.
Wait, doesn't he already have points?
I believe he has.
Does he?
Yeah, he has. Because prior to this race,
points,
he was tied with Esteban Ocon, and I was like, I am not about to lose this battle. So luckily for me, ST Bestie came through the way good friends always do.
I'm so mad that he's driving for Haas next year.
I
look at Ratatouille's face.
I think he's going to do really well for them. I think he's going to have a comparable season to what Hulkenberg had this year, which I'm worried about.
He's going to get outdriven by Oliver Behrman.
Well, let's save it for the hot take episode.
Okay.
All right.
And for me, what will I say for my hot take? Oh, yeah, I already said it. I think Ferrari's going to win the Constructors. And I think, here's my hot take. Max will win the drivers without winning any of the remaining races.
God, that will be painful.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
I couldn't tell what that expression was. Helmet.
I don't know if that's a hot take, though, because, like, second...
We've been rusty. It's been a couple weeks.
Just give me some time to get back in it. Getting loose.
Just trying to feel the room. Feel the energy.
All right, guys. Well,
all right.
Las Vegas next. What's your prediction for the podium in Las Vegas?
Max first, clearly. No.
No. So I'm going to say Piastri, Lando.
I'm going to go Leclerc, Piastri, Lando.
I'm going to go
Lando. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as I say that out loud, I don't think McLaren would let that stand. I think they'd swap them. So give me Leclerc, Lando, Piastri.
I'm going to go Lando, Leclerc, Piastri.
Okay.
But I did say Piastri first, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd swap them. So it would be Lando, Piastri, Sainz.
Which that's got to be a horrible feeling if I'm Piastri.
I don't think he cares at this point because he knew that he underperformed at the beginning of the season.
No,
and
but
he even went on record and said, like, I'm okay with the swapping.
I understand that, but there's got to be some aspect of this that's going to be nagging at you for as competitive as these guys are. And I still think he is as good of a driver as Lando on his day, so why not? But anyway.
But I think, so this is an interesting topic, and maybe we dive into this in a deeper way in a future episode. But this comes back to that theory of Todd's of like, you just want the two best drivers on the grid, right? And realistically, McLaren is as close to that two drivers best team trifecta as any team on the grid right now. So if that mentality is like collective in like, we're all going to do this together, and yes, I might have to sacrifice into this season, like, they're setting themselves up for like really big things next year, in my opinion, regardless of like technology and car and all that stuff, but just like the energy of the team and like having that openness. Because like the opposite of that is Red Bull, right? Max and Checo clearly have not liked each other since the beginning of this season, and the rest of Red Bull doesn't like Checo either. But like, you know what I mean? Like it shows in the fact that like the team is suffering for that, you know?
We'll see if it's all kumbaya if Oscar has a better start to the season next year, though, right? It may not be so like rah,
I mean, it's got to get
go,
competitive
papaya.
at some point, right? But
yeah,
into this season, I feel like it is like the sacrifice is reasonable, let's say.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, great to be back. Thanks for listening, everyone. Make sure you follow these gentlemen. I'll put links to them. I've been using Blue Sky now, so like I don't even know what's going on with social media. Like, I don't know. It's all the same, but it's different. You know?
I feel like it truly is the Shasta equivalent of Twitter, where I'm like, this is fine. Like, this is good.
This is okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you're on a budget, it does the job, right? Like,
Listen,
that's the best.
it's got big Dr. Thunder vibes.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, Threads is fun for the F1 stuff, but outside of that, there's a lot of filtering, and like obviously there's a lot of censoring of stuff, so you don't get to see a lot of news. You don't get to see a lot of just like, you know.
I swear you were going to say you don't get to see a lot of nudes, and I was like, well, that is part of the censoring.
Yeah.
I mean, that too,
Yep.
but you know. But I mean, Twitter, I just can't be on Twitter anymore. It's so bad for me. So Blue Sky is a close alternative. There's more people on there this week than there has been in a long time, and same with Threads. But
I was going to say
Notes FM everywhere for us.
Yep. I'm too depressed to come up with a witty OnlyFans, so I'll just defer to Todd.
You can find me on OnlyFans at Helmet's Lazy Third Eye.
Or Lazy Brown Eye.
Yeah, that was better. It's all the Instagrams, whatever. Just Exhaust Notes FM.
Todd's depressed because you one-upped him with the lazy.
I finally have a witty OnlyFans thing.
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening and tuning in. We promise we'll be better next time. We'll
I really hope that's
one.
someone's first episode and they're confused.
Yeah.